Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our full council meeting. Good evening to everybody in the gallery, and thank you for coming, family, friends, and everybody that's come to ask questions this evening. There are no fire drills planned this evening. Sorry, I'm getting a bounce back. Let's try again. There are no fire drills planned this evening. So if there is a fire alarm, please treat it as an actual fire, and please leave by the steps to the left. Try not to use the lifts, please. Please could you turn off your mobile phones and put them onto silent. And just to say that this meeting is being recorded this evening, so that everybody is aware of that. Apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillor Lilly, Councillor Medland, Councillor Outlaw, Sarah Rudrup. I have Councillor Robertson's, and I've also received apologies from Richard Quidley. Councillor Ellis as well. Do we have any other apologies? Yes, sir.
Councillor Price is running more later than normal.
Councillor Ian Daw is, oh, he's here. Councillor.
We are expecting Councillor Outlaw, but I haven't heard an apology, so it could be tracked.
I've received, sorry, thank you, apologies. I've received apologies from Councillor Outlaw saying that he can't make it.
Oh, lovely, thank you.
I've got a different set of notes here from, that's just why I'm just a bit confused. So now on to the agenda. Minutes from the last meeting. Are there any amendments or comments to that?
Thank you, Chair. The election of the Neighbourhood and Regeneration Chair doesn't appear in the minutes. I understand this was an oversight and will be corrected.
Thank you. Any other comments? Is there a proposer? Seconder, sorry. Somebody seconding them? Thank you. Councillor Luciana. Luciana. Nearly. And now we need to, all in favour? Thank you. Do I need to sign them? I'm sorry. Yeah. Declarations of interests. Councillor Jarman.
Mr. Chair, just to give a non-pecuniary interest in item 6A on the agenda regarding youth justice as a magistrate on the Isle of Wight, and then also under 7A, Appendix 1, item 10, which is sex establishments on the Isle of Wight. Not because I'm overly familiar with them, but because the appeals process is through the Magistrates Court again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fuller.
I'd better say the same thing as Councillor Jarman did, duplicating him, as I am a magistrate on the island, and again, any appeals against sex establishments, I'd better declare a similar interest as Councillor Jarman. Thank you.
It's a good job we're not all going to declare interest in sex on the agenda. Any other? No, thank you. So we now move on to public question time. So we have 3 written questions. Could you please just indicate if you're going to ask a question, just so that I've got an idea. So in addition to that, so we've got 2 others. Thank you. Yeah. I've got the two. Sorry, there's two question members. Two questions from the public gallery. And so, can I invite Mr. Pitcher to ask his question?
Good evening, Chairman. Can you hear me? My question is in regards to planning. I would like to give a small amount of context, if I may. I'm aware that a revised application has been allowed for a significant proposal, despite major changes to the original. It has been estimated that a new application would have netted the council between £50,000 to £75,000, rather than nothing for the revision. So the
Councillor Pitcher.
So the question.
I'm sorry, Councillor Pitcher, you really need to ask the question.
So the question is, that was the total of the context. Does the Isle of Wight Council have either a formal policy or internal guidance for when planning officers should require a new planning application rather than allowing a revision of an existing application? And if no such policy or guidance exists, would the council consider implementing one or other?
Thank you for your question. I believe that Councillor Fuller is going to respond to that.
Thank you, Mr. Pitcher. It is possible for an applicant to suggest changes to an application before the local planning authority has determined the proposal. It is equally possible after the consultation period for the local planning authority to ask the application if it would be possible to revise the application to overcome a possible objection. It is at the discretion of the local planning authority whether to accept such changes to determine if the changes need to be reconsulted upon, or if the proposed changes are so significant as to materially alter the proposal such that a new application should be submitted. The local planning authority has taken the view, in the light of the above guidance, that given the wide-ranging scenarios where consideration over whether the current application can be revised or a fresh application is required, there is little benefit of preparing any future policy or guidance. Rather, each case is considered on a case-to-case basis on its own merits and informed by the officer experienced and knowledge of case law. I can also confirm that there is appropriate internal quality assurance over any decision arrived by the local planning authority to enable us to be confident that the approach taken.
Thank you for that. We have a second question from Mr. Nicholas. Would you like to ask your question, please? Is Mr. Nicholas there? Oh, sorry. Is Mr. Pritchard here to ask a question? Mr. Pritchard? No? In which case, then we'll be giving a written response to that. Thank you for your questions. So we've got two people in the gallery who would like to ask questions. Could you please state your name first and keep that short? Oh, we've got one registered question, sorry, not two. That's Lynn Blackledge.
Hello, Lynn Blackledge here. A little context before my question. My question's about Visit Isle of Wight, the marketing department that promote the island and didn't have to tender when they did it. Anyway, they got in for 5 years and then fast forward now to the current term in 2021. Sorry.
Lynn, to be fair to the previous, I'm sorry, we can't give much context. We have to have the question, please.
Okay, righty-ho. So at the beginning of this 5-year period, there were 1,500, nearly 1,600 levy payers on the list. The next year, there were over 1,600. This year, it's dropped to 1,000. It's dropped 373. So does that mean all those businesses have gone out of business? And is the council concerned about those businesses and why they're not on that levy list. This is to pay a mandatory tax.
Thank you for your question. Councillor Julie Jones-Evans might be the best person to respond to this, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr Duckledge, for a question. I can probably get some more background data on this. Obviously, the Isle of Wight Council's involvement in this, apart from being a levy payer ourselves with our various properties that fall under the auspices of Visit Isle of Wight. They also, it's the hereditaments, basically, it's each individual property. And those, of course, can fall in and out of use. So it depends on the use of the building, not necessarily that a business has gone out of stopped trading. It could be it's a different business, a different class that doesn't come under the auspices of Visit Isle of Wight. So if you'd like to put that in writing, I can certainly put that straight to Visit Isle of Wight as a member of the board representing the Isle of Wight Council, and see where we go from there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the response. Moving on, we have one more question from our Youth Council representative, who I'm absolutely delighted that you're here this evening, Finn, to represent the voice of young people. And I hope that this will be a regular visit and that you will gather some very testing questions for us moving forward. And so would you like to ask your question, Finn?
Yes, thanks, Chairman. Very quickly, I'm Finn Diffie, the Vice Chairman of our Youth Council. And my question is, what are the council doing to provide adequate training to staff for the recognition of bullying so that they may keep our children safe in schools?
Thank you, Finn. I think that's a question for Councillor Bacon. We've been advised.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I did have some advance notice of the question, although it wasn't submitted within the normal timescales for written questions. So a reply has been prepared, which can obviously be forwarded as a normal written question response would be. And the response is this. It is primarily up to individual schools to determine their own approach to tackling bullying, including the adoption of appropriate processes and ensuring sufficient staff training. Often a school will utilise the curriculum to recognise protected characteristics and embed a culture of rights respecting communities. Having said that, the council also supports schools, for example, through the delivery of work such as the Equality and Rights Advocates Scheme. That's the EARA. The EARA groups and meetings provide an opportunity for children to take a lead in promoting rights and equality through pupil voice and to contribute proactively in the promotion of a more inclusive culture in their schools. Where concerns are raised with the council about bullying in schools, the council will undertake investigations and, where appropriate, take action, for example, through commissioning external partners to support in auditing practice and procedure in order to make recommendations to the school for improvement. As a council, we remain committed to safeguarding every individual.
Thank you for your response, very much appreciated. So no more questions that I can see or hear. So we'll move on to the next item, number 4, Chairman's announcements for the meeting, which is me. So I just want to say this, thank you. This was my first report to the meeting, and as you see, I've set it out in my own little way for us. Can I first of all just encourage that actually the agenda for tonight's meeting is actually quite thin, and considering that this is a busy council with lots of things to do, I would encourage you to get in contact with me to request so that we can consider things that you would like to go on the agenda moving forward, because it is a thin agenda given the amount of work that we actually do as a council. So just to say that, and from all parties, please, not just one. Thank you for agreeing to, I know that some of you are not always in favour of supporting our royal family, but you will see that the picture has been placed here in the chamber, which I'm very grateful for the support that you have given. And to those of you who have, who don't feel that that's quite the thing to do, I hope that we might well win you over in the long run. I know that some may not, but the point is, for me, it feels really quite important, and it's here to represent, as far as I'm concerned, the office of government that we all represent, and hope that we can move forward from there. The only other thing that I would want to add to my report was to say thank you to the county show. I couldn't but it was a great county show this year, very well organised. Thank you to Graham for his wonderful efforts in doing that. I'll try to give you reports as we go on, but I won't say anything more. Has anybody got any questions regarding that? No, thank you. So that leads us on to item 5, which is the leaders update report. Can I just say that when we come to questions, we ask questions about the report. And that is what I'm going to try and keep people to asking questions about items within the report, please. There is a question time session later on where we can ask more general questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that clarity. That's helpful. For a number of meetings, I've just said there's my report. It's quick, concise, and allows more time for questions. If I may, this evening, I would just pull out, because it's quite a lengthy, varied report actually this month, covering many aspects of the work of this council, something this council and as councillors we can be proud of actually. But I'll just pull out a couple of things before I do cease speaking and allow you to ask questions on it. And it's there written for you in your papers. But you know, unfortunately, they're not here. But we all know we've been through the election. Councillor Robertson, Councillor Quigley, both councillors serving this council very well, were elected to represent our islanders, both MPs. And I think we will all share the congratulations to both of them for their success and hope that they do a great job for us, for our island, and assist us as a council in the realms of government as we move forward. I've reached out to both, and I'm sure we will be meeting on a regular basis to explore those ways that both. They're not here, but I understand probably I never quite understood when Bob was MP. He seemed to be around on Fridays. I don't know if anyone knows the process, but they seem to be in London Monday to Thursday and in their wards on Friday. So it may be restricting for seeing Richard and Joe. But listen, good luck to them both. I followed their journey in words and pictures in the national press, and actually, I didn't think I'd say so. I'm quite proud of both of them actually, and good luck to them both. Couple of notes. We've been working with Southampton City Council on an innovative technology project, and we were winners in the Service Delivery Project of the Year for the Society of Innovation. A great achievement for this council. And you know, some of the things in the dark days we've been through, and we still deliver some exciting things. And to win awards, and we've won other awards across council, it's a fantastic achievement of this council. Just worth remembering these things. And our HR team. Our HR team work hard to maintain our staffing levels, to recruit when we need them, and we do need recruitment. And I attend a number of induction courses for new staff members, which is fascinating. Most of the morning, in fact. But there we are. And on Monday, the 8th of July, for Ride Academy, year 9 students who came to visited County Hall, and we explained them about the various career opportunities that the council can offer and showed them around County Hall. I don't know if Finn was part of that. I don't know where Finn is from the island. Are you from Ride, Finn?
No, I go to the Bay.
Okay. Well, we'll get round to bringing the bay in, don't worry. But there we are. And a great experience for those young people in Ride Academy. Great achievement. Thank you to our HR staff that worked hard to make that happen for them, and push forward with the idea that working for this local authority on the island where they live is an opportunity for them when they leave school. So that's great. Just mentioning passing, we have replaced 8 of our vehicles with electric vehicles. That's part of a replacement scheme. It's not just going out and buying them. And heaven knows it's very difficult to get anything of spending any money past our Section 151 officer at the best of times. But we have added to our fleet of electric vehicles. Nearly a quarter of our fleet's electric now. So that's something. And finally, not quite finally, this year's staff awards. I'm always astonished, and I've given out some awards, and I'm sure there are councillors here that have done so to our long-serving members, 25 years and up. I'm astonished, absolutely astonished. And I think it's testament. There's my report, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. And so, questions, I believe 3 minutes each. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. That's different being on this side of the chamber. So I've got a question because we've got grave concerns, and I've been contacted about this as well, but my own feelings on this, the grave concerns about the declining demographic of our children, and this is sort of reference the education strategy, and that we don't feel the strategy goes far enough to acknowledge that and put in strategies in place to actually build on the decline and reverse that in some way, that we should be putting in something in centres of excellence and other educational opportunities to try and create a new vision for the island. So my question is, how can we enable that within this strategy? How can we change that to look forward and increase numbers? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Claire. I'm going to ask Jonathan to answer some of the details on this because there is a lot of detail, but the overview is, of course, we have to address the island. It's not only the island, actually, it's a national problem. The island problem of a lower intake of pupils on this island going into our schools, the number of which is projected to be by 2027, which is just 2 years away, 3,000 surplus places in our primary schools. You will know also that the way that government funding is, that we receive around £4,500 per pupil per year. That works out in 2027 to 12 to 14 million pounds. That is out of the whole education system. So we have a duty to address this as an island-wide issue, to raise standards in our schools for our children, for this generation and the next generation, the generations that come after. There's lots of detail, and I'll pass over to Councillor Bacon, who has far more detail than I do on it.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually going to be quite broad brush in this because what you have done is obviously to comment on the fact that we are entering a place planning process to deal with the effects of the low birth rate that not just the island but that the whole country is experiencing. But the important point that I'd like to make, and I think this is what Councillor Critchinson was actually aiming at, is that we are doing this within a wider strategy. There's a new education strategy. It was launched a couple of days before the cabinet papers were published. And the point is that place planning is part of a much bigger picture. And the bigger picture is driving up standards of education on the island. As I said, we spoke about this a lot at scrutiny last night.
I don't think in recent years we've perhaps properly addressed the standards we have on the island. They need to be addressed, and from that, many of the things that Councillor Crichton has spoken about will be addressed. It is the quality of our education that perhaps means we do not have as many incoming young families to the island, as many incoming professionals as we perhaps should have. And as Councillor Crichton's question was really about the strategy, the key point to make there is that this is a draft. It's an initial document. It is going to be developed over the next 6 months, as I think if you look at the strategy and the accompanying information, that is made clear. And that development relies on engagement. And if Councillor Crichton, you or indeed any member or indeed any resident have any issues, concerns, thoughts, suggestions about that strategy, how it should be developed, what it should contain, what it should seek to address, then the next 6 months is the time to bring that forward so that the strategy can be as encompassing as possible. It is a document that's not just going to be there for a few years. The aim, intent, and hope is that it will be part of this fabric, the fabric of the council going forward for many years. It's an initial 5-year document, but it will be followed on. It's the first step in this being an ongoing process and a key driver for the council. And as I say, that overarching drive for the strategy, why it's there, and essentially why we are doing the place planning process is because we need to drive up standards in education. Councillor Jordan referred to the funding situation in schools. It's per pupil. It's not going to change overnight. We have to bear that in mind. If you have too few pupils spread across too many schools, essentially everyone suffers because no one's got enough money. What we have to seek to do is to get the school estate right so that schools are properly funded, because then what they can do is move from day-to-day worrying about survival to day-to-day concentrating on standards. Some of you are governors. I was until recently, and you will know that those governors' meetings, they're always about the finance. And sometimes the real key issue of the quality of education for our students is not at the top of the agenda when it really should be. And that's what the process that we're going through is about, and that is what the education strategy is about. So I've gone on a bit, but I think it's important.
Say, can we, thank you. There are other questions. Councillor Brodie.
Sorry, Chair, can I just make a remark? I nearly made a point of order, but this is questions to the leader of the council, not questions to the cabinet as well. And I was getting a bit worried if it was going to be passed around. We have precisely 15 minutes to do this, so I would ask you to deal with that in future.
Yes.
My question is, when Hampshire County Council pulled out of the partnership arrangement that we had for children's services on the Isle of Wight, there was a lot of contentment, I think, at that decision by Hampshire, that we were going to be able to manage our own affairs in terms of particularly education, because educational standards, frankly, hadn't improved at all during the partnership, not in my view. Given that, and given Councillor Jordan, the leader's semi-jocular remark about the Section 151 officer, can I ask you if you've considered ending the contract with Portsmouth City Council regarding the Section 151 officer and having one who's committed to the Isle of Wight? Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. The very short answer is no, we haven't considered that at this stage. I would prefer not to say anything further.
Councillor Mosdale.
So as we're going to be asked about, we're allowed to ask about place planning, I'm just going to get my full pennyworth in. Thank you. Leader, I chaired corporate scrutiny last night, and as you can imagine, it was because it's going to Cabinet on Thursday. This was a really big item on our agenda to discuss. One of the things that came up was how the report had in the place planning. You know, I know Councillor Bacon has talked about the strategy, but at the moment, the things that really is in everybody's foreminds, if you're a parent, a grandparent, a teacher, a governor, is about about place planning and school closures, you know, bring it into the room. That's what they're interested in, is school closures. Is your name on the list? You know, you don't even want to be a teacher at the moment because you're thinking, is my job safe? What's going on? You know, we've got I'm contacted constantly with parents going, I don't know if to send my children to this school because I don't know if it's going to be around. I'm like, I don't know. One of the things that came clear last night was about planning. You know, we talk about birth rate, etc. But one of the things that came across last night, that in the place planning document, it could be flawed on what planning applications have been taken into account. I know that there are applications that can't be taken into account that haven't been granted yet, such as Westridge, etc. But I do have an application in the ward next to mine in Arraton, which is 100 houses, that has been granted. It could be built at any time, and that hasn't been looked into as part of the document. My fear is, because we're using the excuse of the general election, that this hasn't gone out to consultation. You know, that was an open discussion last night at corporate scrutiny, but because this isn't going out to the wider audience for whichever reasons, maybe it's because it is such a difficult thing to do, we're not getting the input that we need to go from the general public. How can we be assured that the items that we bring in front of residents can be put in that document? The document will be amended, and we can have one more look at it as councillors to feel that we are happy before it goes forward. Because last night it was clearly flawed and needs to be looked at further because it becomes a live document. You are going to pass it at cabinet tomorrow. If I was a cabinet member, I would be worried about doing that. And remember, everybody is watching you, leader, because everybody in this room is affected because of their children, their relatives, and they might not be a child, but they might be a teacher, and uncertainty will actually kill schools.
Thank you, Claire. As Councillor Bacon pointed out, this is a 6-month process. We would hope and plan to make sure that we gather all of the appropriate information to make the correct decisions.
Councillor Jordan. I know you say that this is a 6-month process, but I can absolutely assure you, when that document comes live in September and schools are named that they are going up for closure, that basically is a nail in the coffin for those schools. I know schools that were accidentally, or however it happened, 4 schools were named before, and actually pupils left, you know, the uncertainty within the school. It's really hard for a school to build up from that. So I know you say 6 months, but you know, even my book of holidays, you know, we've got August, September, you know, we haven't got 6 months before that is really in the public name and schools are named.
Can I just ask that people try and keep their questions fairly short? We're out of time. And through the chair next time, please. Through the chair next time, you had a supplementary question without asking.
Thanks, Chair. Claire, look, the first thing is this, you know, that, yeah, there are school. Well, I have Councillor Brodie saying.
Chair, can I make it clear? I want to hear from the leader, not from Councillor Bacon.
I can get Councillor Bacon to answer, or I'll answer. But look, before I do that, Chair, I can commit to reviewing the planning data. Right, we can commit to that. We want to get this right. This is a difficult position to be in. We're not the only. It's not just the island. Across nationally, they're faced with the same problem, and we've got to try and get the solution to that problem right. I can commit to reviewing the planning data, because I think that's what I heard you were raising concerns about. We need to get this right. If reviewing the data gets it righter, then we'll do that. I hope that gives you some comfort.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. Leader, taking you back specifically to your report, you congratulated both of our 2 colleagues on their election, and we celebrate that as well. During that election, there was an emphasis, and a repeated emphasis from some of us, on ferries. Obviously, we know that there is an issue about the problems that they cause, you know, in terms of communities and families, in terms of health, in terms of economy, and obviously the cost. And we've seen recent problems with Red Funnel. Can I ask you to confirm that when you're talking to Richard and Joe, you will follow up what they've said, which is ferries are an absolute priority.
Thank you, Nick. And I omitted to say, because you stood and ran, and commiserations to you and to any other councillors that were unsuccessful. And I think should note that you had the courage to do that. And bad luck, Nick. Absolutely. Well, what else can you say? I absolutely commit to that. I'm working now. I've spoken to Richard. I've worked with Richard already. I work with transport professionals and have done for a number of years on trying to find a solution for the ferry problem for this island. And that may mean a public service obligation. It may mean some kind of controls. It may mean a government that would look at the financial structures of these organisations, where it seems to be that they generate a decent profit, which is filtered away from the operating company and up into holding companies and paid shareholders and dividends upstream, leaving the operating company to tell us it's difficult running ferries and making a profit, and therefore it's difficult for us to put on extra ferries or reduce our prices and so on. So we're working hard on that. We do get questions in the House of Lords through an existing Lord. And Richard, and I hope Joe, and I know it's important to Joe and he's spoken publicly about that. I hope Joe and Richard will assist me in continuing to push for better service from our ferries.
And that is time, members. I'm sorry for questions.
Chair, I think could I ask to make a point of information?
Point of information, very, very, very quickly.
I think Councillor Jordan was trying to avoid the wrath of Councillor Brodie a moment ago, but just in relation to the place planning strategy, it should be made clear it is a live document now. It is an organic document. It is being developed. It has gone out to the wider audience. There's an ongoing process of seeking comment and information over the coming months, so that all those points that have been raised, as I said last night, can be made and will be taken.
I'm sorry.
That point wasn't made clear. It's important. Thank you.
I don't mind taking points of information, and I promise that I will be much more succinct next time, because what I don't want is I want people to come through the chair, please, and I want to try and keep them shorter. So if a member does take a question by request of the leader, can you keep it as short as possible, because we only have 15 minutes. The next item on the agenda is a report from the Cabinet Member for Children's Services and Corporate Functions.
Me again. So this is the Youth Justice Plan, and very simply, members, the report is presenting the annual Youth Justice Plan to full council for endorsement. Where's my copy gone? I think it's paragraph 3 says it is a statutory requirement to have such a plan, and it is necessary for release of the relevant annual grant. It's also perhaps worth noting that the National Youth Justice Board provides guidance and prescribed headings as to what the plan should contain. Therefore, the report content is somewhat prescribed. That's it, really. I would just like to make a few wider comments, though. Of course, as has been mentioned already in another context, we have ceased the partnership with Hampshire County Council, where there'd previously been a joint youth justice board. So we have now established an island-only board, which is chaired by our DCS, Ashley Whitaker, and that board provides continuity and insight across partnerships with statutory partners. And of course, now focused 100% on the island and island children. We've also integrated the Youth Justice Service into the Children's Social Care Department. So operating centrally, a central reporting mechanism, which again, hopefully provides continuity and island context. Further, since those changes have come about, there's been a review of all policies and procedures, again, to ensure that everything is island focused. There have been increased reparation options created. The board has achieved send lead status, and there has been increased partnership working with various voluntary agencies. It's also fair to say a number of things have been identified to be monitored, but one that I think should be highlighted is a particular need to focus on reducing reoffending. And it is interesting to note that the work that has been done indicates, sorry, this will sound slightly flippant, but the response from the children affected is because they're bored, and there's an issue with the lack of youth provision on the Isle of Wight. And that's something, with my wider hat on, I would like to see us doing something about. But that is perhaps just an indicator of the sort of work that is going on through that service and through that board. That's it in terms of what I'd like to say. So, as I say, the report is there for endorsement. The recommendation simply at paragraph 2 is that this council endorse the plan. And I think I need a seconder for that, and I have one.
So, questions, comments? Thank you. Councillor Mosdale.
So reading the plan, so it's not so much a question of the plan or about the report and the activity of the council, really. When you get to, I love this, responding to climate change and enhancing the biosphere, we clearly have to get that into everything, don't we? And it says staff activity. And basically, staff remain working at home for part of the week, which has reduced the amount of travel into County Hall. However, this is offset against the additional heating costs they may have at home. I have a real thing about this because I walk around County Hall sometimes in this great big building that you can't get a car parking space at time when you do come here. And I walk in here and think this must be the busiest building on the on the planet. You get in here and it's like nobody's here. I went through a floor yesterday. I think Councillor Blake and I went through, and I think there was about 10 people on that floor, wasn't it? It's a massive building that we turn the lights on every day. We turn the heating on every day. Is this actually contractual that people have to stay at home part of the time? How do we monitor that people are actually being productive at home? It just always seems that it comes into here and it's under, I love the bit, the climate change and biosphere. I'm just really interested, is this across all staff now? Because we'll be signing off on something that is saying that most people can work at home or not be here or be here. And if we are going to do that, why have we still got this building? It's also be a really short meeting if I don't ask any questions. I won't feel like I have the right to be here.
Councillor Mosdale, I'm not entirely sure what that has got to do with the agenda item, really.
It's in the report. It's on page 26.
That's not part of the Youth Justice Board report.
Part of the Youth Justice report, is it?
Isle of Wight Youth Justice Service
Anyway.
full council report. It's in front of
Youth
me.
Justice report, not Biosphere report.
No, it's in the report, page 26.
Thank you very much for that. We will move on. Would you like to respond?
The plan actually starts at page 31, and that's what we're seeking to endorse. Councillor Mosdale's looking at the covering report and raising a very generalised issue that I think is an operational matter. And it's possibly better that she engages with the Chief Executive over that, frankly.
One person at a time, please, through the chair. Through the chair. Where are we now? Councillor Spink.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to follow on from a previous comment of Councillor Bacon, which is that most youth offenders, so page 53, their comments are that there's just nothing to do for us in the evenings other than get up to mischief. That's not their precise words, but that's the, and I'd just like to endorse that and give an example of something that happened in Freshwater. There was a spate, which I think is to some extent over now, but there was a spate of antisocial behaviour in Freshwater. We had 2 public meetings, which the police attended, and also very helpfully the cabinet portfolio holder Councillor Lucioni. But in the end, it was pretty much left, I have to say, to the community to try and sort out what the problem was with these children. And I and a member of the Freshwater Residents Association had a meeting then with the parents. Most of the parents of the children who had been offending were single parents and therefore, I think almost exclusively women. And they all said that their children just don't know what to do in the evenings. And they were all concerned that they couldn't really control their children. So also at the meeting was one of the senior members of staff of the West White Sports Centre in Freshwater. And because they said, you know, we need more, we asked what sort of more they needed. And the idea, that the general feeling was that, and this was raised by the mothers, that they thought boxing would be a good idea. Perhaps it would use up their aggression. But boxing would be a good idea, some football would be a good idea, and the possibility of more youth clubs. Now, I'm sorry if it's taking up time, but I think it's important. So basically what happened was that we were told that there would be funding for this up to £5,000, and the West White Leisure Centre went ahead and trained some boxing trainers, etc., invested their money. The funds have never been forthcoming, never been forthcoming. And, you know, I do think that reports, this is a good report, but it's a very academic report, and we do need to deal a bit more, if I may say so, with the nitty gritty. The other side of this report, the other side of this tale that I'm telling about Freshwater was that the victims felt that there was little for them. The victims felt terrorized and there was little support coming from anywhere for the victims. These need to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I think the point that you made about the £5,000 is a point that I would ask perhaps our chief executive to look into. And yeah, and well, perhaps you could follow up on that.
It was, yeah, it was through the PCC and they had to apply for it and the police had to support them. So I can bring that back again.
Thank you.
So that
Could you
wasn't through the
liaise
council,
between
so it
you
was-
so that there's a proper
Yeah,
response to
so,
that?
yeah, so unfortunately, I'm not part of that. That is a process that goes on with the PCC, but we can have those conversations again.
But if you could have that conversation.
I'd like to can I just say something about single parents? I was a single parent of a boy. Doesn't mean that they're going to get into trouble.
That was never my suggestion, Chair, with respect.
Yeah. Jones Evans.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to wholeheartedly endorse this report, and it's great to hear the voice of young people as well who are involved at this level, because we don't often hear their voices at all, do we? We just sort of tend to write them off, and again, you know, Councillor Lucioni just had a response from Councillor Spink, but I found that quite offensive as well, as a single mother as well of a young man now. I hope he's not thinking it's a blight on single female parents that their children are running riot. I just think it's a dangerous statement to make. But you know, I think there's a lot of hard work here, and there's a lot of hope as well. I mean, there's some really quite good statistics, and how I think we've actually dropped to zero. Which page is it on? With the children in custody, young children in custody in 2023. It's got down to zero. So it's some really good progress here. So I'd just like to say thank everyone for all the hard work. It's great to hear the voice of the young people, and we need to keep listening and keep acting and responding. And you know, we've got two great programs. I mean, I'm not taking responsibility for this one because Rye Town Council have now got their fantastic YIF building in Ryde, St Thomas's, which opened recently. I heard some great things about that, so well done to Ryde. And also we've, Isle of Wight Council have had £3.1 million for Sandown Town Hall, again, which will be some great youth diversionary activities there. So we are moving forward. We do take advantage of opportunities when they come along. They take a lot of hard work to get the funding in, and also then to deliver the projects, but it's not something we're shying away from. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Spinks, I will just allow you just very, just in order to, what we
Chair.
do not want to do is enter into throwing things at each other.
I have no intention of doing that, but I do just want to make it clear to both Councillor Lucioni, who I did say was present at the meetings and was helpful, and also to Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, that none of what I said was intended to criticise single mothers. Quite the contrary, I spent a lot of time speaking to single mothers and trying to solve the problems. The fact of the matter is that they were having difficulties controlling their children.
I
It's not a
understand that.
criticism, it was a fact.
That's okay.
Thank
you very much. I allowed you the right to respond on that. And we have I've got Councillor Garrett. My apologies, Councillor Stewart.
Well, if you got me first, Chair, I'll go first. But I think Councillor Stewart had indicated, but in any case, I think the point I'm going to make is kind of the flip side of the question that is asked of a number of young people. Why do you think children on the Isle of Wight commit crime? Is actually to ask children, why do you think the vast majority of children on the Isle of Wight don't commit crime? And actually understand what it is that is keeping those children from entering a pathway that very few do, and understand that flip side to things. So what is it that's helping them be entertained, engaged in productive ways, in ways they feel that they don't have to use up their energies in non-constructive ways. The other point I would definitely, most definitely welcome is the identification it gives to the fact that children's development is now being understood much more greatly, and the degree to which actually young brains are different from older brains, and the length of time actually development of brains, and therefore personality and understanding and attitudes takes time. That does not excuse behaviours, but informs those behaviours. The final thing I'd say is be very aware, and I know there is a campaigner on the Isle of Wight who has campaigned strongly around the impact that trauma has on young people. And it's really very, very important that in all of these sorts of strategies that we give understanding to the impact that trauma at a very young age, when brains are still developing very fast and greatly influenced by the experiences that they have, particularly when they're incredibly negative, can be taken into account to help those young people find a pathway that isn't the destructive way that sadly a few end up in. But ultimately, this is a good plan. It is well led by data. It does have key performance indicators as far as I can see, and I wish it every success.
Councillor Stewart. And then we have just one more after that, Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Chair. Certainly that we welcome this report, which deals with a very, very small section of children. And I hasten to add that we did not collaborate in our discussions. So it's very interesting and welcome to see that my leader is actually echoing some of the things I'm considering. What I'm fascinated by is that we don't actually see a lot of reference to a lot of the voluntary organisations that are involved with these type of children, both in terms of looking after them, of encouraging them, and of getting them into employment. And it would be very interesting to see that the plan actually included a formal mechanism by which those other organisations, which are often separately funded and maybe charities, could be brought into helping our young people, the very small minority who struggle. Thank you.
And Councillor Fuller.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm not going to talk about anything judicial, but what I will say is that under Section 106 agreements, there are the opportunities for local town and parish councils to make bids for funding for on behalf of their community. So if there are areas of the island that feels that we are not supporting young people in the way that communities want, there is the opportunity through Section 106 funding to be able to get money from any future developments that's happening. Certainly with the new government coming in and the potential for new developments happening across the island, we have several underway at the moment. I would certainly urge town and parish councils and community councils, Jeff, to be able to make sure that they also put in applications for funding, because, you know, from experience, funding that goes towards supporting our young people is always very, very positively received. So I would welcome that to be made. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unless anybody's got anything burning, we will move to the vote.
Could I just say a couple of words in conclusion, Chair?
Oh, yes. I did miss that bit out.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. I would just like to pick up on what Councillor Stewart has said, and I will ask about that. It's a good point. As I did say earlier, the plan itself is prescribed in some part, but we'll see if something can be done, because there are a number of voluntary agencies, three off the top of my head: Isle of Wight Music Hub, the Youth Trust, Creative Change Makers, many others who do excellent stuff. And we did sort of touch on the wider issue earlier, and just when the Councillor Spink spoke, and I would say, and this perhaps touches also on what Councillor Stewart said, that do please look to what work is being done elsewhere. I'll declare an interest. I'm going to mention Brading Community Partnership, of which I'm a trustee, but that runs a fantastic youth club. They run boxing. It's non-contact boxing. I know there were a few sniggers around the room, but it is fantastic for the children. Indeed, there was a youth awards event at Sandown last December where a demonstration was given of the discipline that is used to engender. In fact, the then High Sheriff and then MP took part in it and saw how that worked. So it's not something to regard flippantly. It's something that is very valuable and works well in the right context. I'd also perhaps like to mention the work of the current High Sheriff, Graham Biss, who is taking youth and supporting youth as his theme this year. He is working to bring together all youth providers, youth bodies, and get them all in the room together. We had a discussion about it earlier today, in fact, and that can be used as a basis to develop that work, develop work between those bodies, so largely carrying on separately and not together. But there's the basis there for developing something which can then spread over those areas of the island that are not benefiting from such provision or directly benefiting from such provision. And hopefully the sort of incidents and activity that Councillor Spink referred to can be minimised. I don't think you're going to stop it, but you can certainly, by providing things like this and supporting them in a meaningful way, help a great deal. And it can mean, just one other example, the sort of good things that are out there that we mustn't forget. There was a fantastic event, Sandown, last weekend, Ascend Youth Festival, organised by the young people there. I was privileged to attend on the Friday night event. Attendance well into three figures, some really good activity, some really positive stuff there. And when you get support for that sort of thing, and it enables children to find out what they can do, it's valuable. And certainly I want to see that happening as much as possible. But as I say, the High Sheriff is really leading something here that I just want people to be aware of, and contact him. He'll happily tell you about it and support you if he can. Thank you. And please endorse the paper.
Thank you, Councillor Bacon, for your response. And now we move to the vote. My apologies for that previously. All those in favour? It's carried, I believe. Any against? No, we'll just, there's some uncertainty. Any, I can't say it, can I? Abstentions, not substentions, abstentions. Thank you. And that concludes. So we now have a report for the Cabinet Member for Regulatory Services, Community Protection Licensee. Approval of the Sex Establishment Licensing Policy, public document, and that's pages 79 to 104. And we have Carol Luciano. Karen Luciano. My deepest apologies. I've never been able to get my mouth around some of the words.
Thank you, Chair, and can we remember it's before watershed, okay? The paper sets out the revised sex establishment licensing policy. Although not a statutory requirement, it's a useful tool in conjunction with the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1982, as amended by Section 27 of the Policing and Crime Act of 2009, which provides the legislative, I can never say that word, framework, which provides clear guidance to all applicants on the process and regulation of any license issued. The policy covers sex shops, sex cinemas, didn't even know that was a thing, sexual entertainment venues. Currently, there's only one premises on the island which requires licensing under this policy. This paper is a renewal of the policy, which was introduced in 2014 and provided a useful and unchallenged document for all sex establishments licensing matters. The new policy has some minor changes. These are grammatical changes or rewording of paragraphs to ensure clarity. These are outlined in the evaluation section of the report. The policy before you undertakes a public consultation, and the licensing committee will given an opportunity to make any further recommendations to full council. The consultation section of the report provides you with the full details of the consultation and the comments received. I believe there was only one from the police, which was no comment. Therefore, as there's only been minor changes, no comments during the consultation, and previous policy being unchallenged, I recommend approval as per option 1 of the report.
Thank you. And seconder, Councillor Fuller. Moving on to any.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just ask when the current policy expires? And I assume that that will provide the handover date, which is required on page 87 for the effective date of the new policy.
1st of August.
1st of August, I believe.
Thank you. I have some further questions.
Supplementary. We just got one additional question, supplementary.
All right. So another question regarding the clarity in the text then is at the bottom of page 89, where it refers to under 4.6, before a live audience for financial gain. And then in the next sentence goes on to say ignoring financial gain. So is the policy limited to those for financial gain or limited to those ignoring financial gain? Which is the case?
Councillor Luciano. Microphone, please. Microphone, please.
Sorry, is this the actual report, Councillor Jarman? The actual policy?
Can you state the page, please?
Page 89.
Page 89.
Last paragraph.
Okay, so I've got it different on mine. So which paragraph?
Yours is different.
Sorry, say that again. Paragraph 4.6 of the policy. If this is difficult, then you might wish to give a written reply, I might suggest.
Yeah, I think that would be best, a written reply. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Andre.
Thank you, Chair. I've got more of a request I note that an equality impact assessment was carried out in respect of this. Can I ask, but I can't see it in the appendix anywhere, can I ask that it is attached for transparency?
Thank you. And if I could ask, has that been circulated? If it hasn't been circulated, could we have a recirculation of that?
I did ask and I was sent a copy of the EIA.
So can I
But I
suggest that
couldn't
that goes
find
to
it
all
on the
members then,
papers.
please?
I can do that now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? As there are no other questions, I will allow you to have just one more, Councillor Jarman.
I have a question under section 4.9 of the document, where it, and many of you will know that I've been involved in issues to do with discrimination and accessibility for some time here. We draw a distinction between in the case of a woman and in the case of a man. That is increasingly, I believe, frowned upon in most legislation and is indeed run into some issues, particularly regards pensions recently, with which I'm quite familiar, as are a number of others. And I would ask, what is the Isle of Wight's Council's definition of a woman and a man? Under the 2010 Equality Act, which has been challenged many times, it is remarkably unclear. Everyone will probably be familiar with the challenge to that in Scotland in 2018 that fell apart and almost brought down their government. The government, the last government, which has just left, were unable to clarify that issue. I very much doubt whether the incoming government will wish to face dealing with that issue for various reasons. But clearly, if we are to use those terms as the Isle of Wight Council to draw a distinction, we should define and clearly understand what we mean by them. For example, somebody who is transgender, somebody who is choosing at that moment to present as a man or a woman. There are a number of situations where this could arise some difficulty of interpretation. So either we define it or we remove what I believe to be an aberration.
Okay. I think you make an important point. Would you like to respond, Councillor, or not?
Get it looked into. Do you want it taken out? I
Um,
don't know if that would actually change.
Okay, so what I would like to suggest to the chair is that we do actually have a close look at this in terms of equality and diversity and inclusion, and that we seek some clarity for that. If you would like to, and care to report back to that at the next meeting. I think we need to be very clear about our language. It is an important point that they've raised, and I thank you for that. But clearly, we need time to look at that and reflect and consider. Okay.
I will report back, but I would say it's probably in the licensing about what you can show and what you can't. I'm not going to use the words. Thank you.
So you might like to actually share a form of words then from that document and circulate to all members. Thank you. Have we any more questions about that, or shall we, would you like to come back and comment, Councillor Luciani? Summing up? Would you like to sum up?
No, thank you. I think it's self-explanatory. Thank you very much.
Thank you. In which case, we look to adopt that document. Yes. Yes, we did have a seconder and
option one.
So I think that I'm happy to move forward with the document, but we can bring that back with the recommendations and proposals that are later. So you're going to circulate a form of words. If people are not happy with that form of words, I am happy to bring that back onto the next agenda. I'm happy to do that. Okay. I think it's important that we give time for people to think and reflect about what's being said. Okay. So.
Does that mean you want to approve it or you want to defer it?
No, I'm happy to approve it. So I'm happy to see a vote bringing it forward. Okay. So those in favour? Counted them all. Those against? 2 against. Abstentions? 6. Okay. Thank you. That's carried. Where are we now then? No. Yeah, yeah. Sorry about that. It's just got a different format from what I normally use. That's part of my problem. So now we have a report from the monitoring officer, which I'm asking if we, every meeting, we spend a lot of time on this. If we can keep this as brief as possible, I would appreciate that.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'll be very brief on this occasion. We've had 2 vacancies as a result of Councillor Joe Robertson resigning from a couple of committees. A vacancy on the Corporate Scrutiny Committee and a vacancy on the Policy and Scrutiny Committee for Health and Social Care. Both vacancies are allocated seats to the Conservative group, and Councillor Claire Mosdale has kindly provided 2 councillors, Councillor Ed Blake for Corporate Scrutiny Committee and Councillor Ian Ward for the vacancy in the Policy and Scrutiny Committee for Health and Social Care. And I had a brief chat before the meeting, and they both kindly confirmed that they're willing to take up those appointments. There are 1 or 2 other vacancies, but I propose those vacancies to be dealt with at a future council meeting, and therefore the recommendation to members this evening is that the revised Appendix 1 appointments therein, namely Councillor Ed Blake to Corporate Scrutiny Committee and Councillor Ian Ward to the Policy and Scrutiny Committee for Health and Social Care, those appointments be made. Thank you.
I'm happy to take those together. Is there a proposer for that? Okay. Councillor Mosdale and the seconder. Councillor Brading.
I've just, the Chief Secretary just explained to me, we do, whilst we haven't proposed prior to the meeting, we are prepared to propose a councillor for the 3rd, the Pension Fund Committee. If you are happy to take that proposal and seconder to add to the vote that you're just about to go to.
I'd like to add that to the vote.
I'll propose Councillor Ian Stevens for the Pension Fund Committee. Look for a seconder. Thank you.
Yeah.
And just for sake of completeness, Councillor Stevens, you're obviously willing to take up that appointment. Thank you.
Okay.
So that's an addition to the revised Appendix 1 to appoint Councillor Ian Stevens to the vacancy for the Alliance Group on the Pension Fund Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. I was getting ahead of that. I was trying to push it on because we spend so much time on this subject. So we have 3 people nominated. So we need a proposer for which has been suggested as Councillor Mosdale for all 3. Yes? Are you going to propose it? This is a serious meeting.
Just ask me where Vanessa is.
Well, I'm not interested in the jokes. I'm interested in the serious business of this this committee. So proposed. And Councillor Brading. Okay, those in favour? Thank you. And that's carried. Yes, Councillor Jarman.
Can I just take this opportunity to a warm welcome to Councillor Ian Stevens to the Pension Fund Committee. I'm sure his time there will be well spent. And for many of you, not that I wish to sing the praises of the people working on that, you will probably have seen the note last week that the Pension Fund Committee in the last financial year showed a net gain on its investments of 94 million. And a net gain of some 84 million. So it's performing very well. I'm sure with Councillor Ian Stevens on board, even better.
Thank you. Thank you. So, comfort break, or would you just rather move on to question time? Bearing in mind that, is everybody happy with that? 'Cause some people may not. Okay. In which case we have 30 minutes for question time. And we have a written question submitted by Councillor Brodie to start with. That's MQ 14/24. Would you like to ask your question, Councillor Brodie?
Thank you, Chair, and you'll be delighted to do. I don't intend to read it all out. The only part of it is a question, is the first paragraph, the rest is background, so that everybody knows what the situation. It's interesting that this evening we had a conversation about youth provision on the Isle of Wight. Councillor Bacon referred to the lack of youth provision on the Isle of Wight, which frankly has been appalling since the early days of austerity under the previous Conservative and Lib Dem government of 2010 to 2015, when council services all across the country, but in particular here, were slashed and youth services on the island were terminated. People will remember that who were on the council at the time. I certainly remembered it. We lost youth clubs across the island, and local town, parish and community councils have tried to fill that gap. In particular, Ryde Town Council with Network Ryde, who have spent a lot of money, and Newport and Carisbrooke Council, far less money. We're a bit more conservative with a small C with money than Councillor Jordan is at Ryde. We have supported as many organisations working with youth, and interestingly, we do have a boxing club at Newport, and it's contact. And I tell you what, the children who go there behave themselves, and I visit there on a regular basis. If you ever want to go and see a real boxing club, give me a shout and I'll take you down there. It's fantastic. And those kids do no harm outside. The reason I put this question on, because it's been going on for so long, and I've escalated it recently. It refers to a facility in one of the most deprived wards, if not the most deprived wards on the Isle of Wight, a mugger that used a multi-use games area, which used to be so massively popular when it was run on the site on the former Downside Middle School. Barton Primary School, when they moved up there in 2016, the governors decided to close it off, and it's just been allowed to deteriorate. I can access money, not only Section 106 monies, but other monies as well, to bring it up to standard. But we're only going to do that if we have guaranteed access to it. I'm not going to spend money from anywhere on it unless there's a guarantee. And Councillor Price, my colleague, sat behind me, the chair of our Assets and Community Council, got the support of our council to take on the management of it. The school governors agreed to it, and we had a meeting with officers in the Children's Services Directorate back in February, I think it was, where everybody agreed that we would move to a lease. We still haven't got that lease 5 months later. That is not good. There are 2 questions that are consistently asked of me in my ward. 2. I get most things done, but 2 I can't get done. 1 is the lane by Councillor Price's garage. When is Pan Lane going to open? So it's 2-way, should have been dealt with under the ASDA application many years ago. And secondly, when is the mugger going to be open? So my question, very straightforwardly, Councillor Bacon, obviously you've seen it, probably in more formats than this. Why has it taken the Children's Services Directorate more than 5 months to still fail to lease the Pan mugger to Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council's management, where it can be brought back into community use after 8 years? And I'll just conclude, at the bottom, Pan and Barton is an area where many youngsters don't get holidays away, and play facilities are so important. We get many warm words from council leaderships. I used to get them at the Health and Wellbeing Board in the early days of this administration about addressing deprivation and such like. But when it comes down to it, little ever really happens. So we have another summer upon us where the gates will be locked against local youngsters. Well, we'll see about that. I look forward to your response, and I look forward to having a written response as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brodie. I'm so pleased you didn't read out all of this as well in that. But your passion is received in good faith and well. Thank you. And Councillor Bacon.
I think what he said was longer than the original question, actually. But Jeff, I know I will only I don't know why I was only made aware of this question a couple of hours ago, and I would have got a fuller set of information for you if I'd been able to chase it up. I know we've been in contact about this. We had a number of emails and chasing has been involved. There is a necessity for approval, section 77 consent from the Department of Education, Secretary of State. There's been a process of gathering that information to submit. And then last time I inquired, I think it was last week or whatever, we were waiting on that approval. And I don't know if the election caused it to stick or whatever, but the material that's been provided to me today, the application has now been approved by the Secretary of State. And very simply, the answer says we can therefore proceed with the lease. So there is a prepared answer, but I think that's what you need to know. And I share your thoughts about the value of the youth provision. So I'm really hopeful now. I saw that area years ago when I previously held this role, and I get exactly what you're saying. I'm really pleased to be able to pass that news on to you. And I only hope, and I will ask Mr. Whitaker, he's nodding, to make sure this is progressed as quickly as possible so that lease can be put in place. I know, no offense to anyone, but legal things move slowly. I've been a lawyer, I know that, but let's just make this one happen as soon as possible. But as I say, the essential thing was the consent of the Secretary of State, and we've now got it, so things can proceed.
Thanks for that, Chair. If you don't mind me saying, I am aware that we got the Section 77 approval today, so hopefully we can get this in open for at least part of the summer holidays for the children who will not be having holidays. Thank you.
Can I thank you for your question and thank you for your very positive response? So that sounds, I'm sorry about the length of that it's taken to address that, but still it has been addressed here tonight and that's important. The next question that I've got here, I will come to you, I promise you. I have got Councillor Jordan, who's indicated.
Thank you, Chair. No, it would be strange if I was to ask a question of myself or the Cabinet, but what I would just say, Chair, absolutely support that, Jeff. I know the frustrations of this, and I'm going to ask the Cabinet member from a non-legal mind if one way forward would be to have a licence to occupy that facility whilst the lease is being agreed.
Thank you for that. Councillor Nicholson was next.
Yeah, I think it's important that I raise awareness that cows supports what Councillor Brodie is saying, because we are suffering from a very similar sort of situation where we're finding it very difficult to find a location and provide facilities for youth in the growing threat of antisocial behaviour. And we did have a community building built at Cowes Enterprise College, funded through lottery funding, on the condition that it was a community asset. I'm looking at Laura. And when the high school was passed over to Ormston, that condition was lost, and it now sits there sorely wanting to be used by various organisations, and it's not being used. So I think really, as an Isle of Wight council, we have to put our money where our mouth is.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Would anybody like to respond to that? Yeah, thank you. Councillor Churchman.
I find it incomprehensible that we've just passed a report on children's services and youth justice, etc. It's all talk, it's all words on paper, and nothing seems to be happening. I would like to see this brought back, please, to the next council meeting to see if it has been progressed and something has been done. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Church. What you're asking for is a progress report at the next meeting. At full council, or?
You could leave that to me to raise it again if it hasn't happened.
Okay, thank you.
You'll know far more about it before September's full council.
Thank you. Are you happy with that, Councillor Churchman? Response? Thank you very much. Thank you. Just for clarity, to make sure everybody's got there. Councillor Spink. Oh, sorry, we'll go to Councillor Jarman first. I've jumped over. My apology.
Very kind, thank you. We've heard a lot this evening on school place planning. And of course, the numbers which are used in that have been well known and circulated, I believe, quite consistently since at least September 2021, given that we're able to progress quite easily how many children progress from one year to another, namely almost all of them. And I was very pleased to hear that we're going to take a holistic report to this exercise, finally, after those 3 years. But would I ask that that report includes, and there's a commitment to include, not only the 3,500 unfilled spaces, which are calculated, but also the correct financial information following the incorporation of Medina and Carisbrooke colleges into a multi-academy trust, where some 875,000 needs to be corrected in the accounts and the summations relating to that, because that money is no longer under the control or auspices of the Isle of Wight Council. It now has been transferred as of the 1st of July to that trust. And that report includes, when it's brought forward holistically, the transfer of debt which is incumbent from those schools, and that in the meanwhile, the Isle of Wight Council accounts accrue for those transfers of debts which are now reasonably foreseen, quote unquote, and therefore need to be incorporated within our accounts. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're looking at me, Chair. It's essentially an audit matter, but I'd see Mr. Whitaker is previously writing that down. It would possibly assist if Councillor Jarman could provide that request in writing. I'm sure that information will be dealt with appropriately and can be provided at the appropriate juncture and appropriate place.
I will do so, and it's for the holistic report to include those items. Thank you.
And now to Councillor Spinks.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for the leader. So, leader, I read with some interest a column a couple of Fridays ago that you wrote in the county press on affordable housing. I'm afraid that when I ended up, as it were, having read the article or the column, a little concerned as to whether or not what you were proposing would actually provide affordable housing, which is truly affordable to those on the island average wage or below. What you were proposing is a discount, as it were, of 80% of market value, or if at all possible, but the sense was that it probably wouldn't be, 70% of market value. Now, there is a wealth of evidence to show that a greater discount is required for it to be affordable to islanders. And therefore, with respect, what you're proposing will not solve the problem. And I'm concerned that you've been in power now for over 3 years. Can you not have a policy which will actually deliver affordable housing, which is truly affordable? What you're proposing is not. And I have asked on numerous occasions if you would look at using council land for truly affordable housing for islanders, rather than disposing of it to private developers for sums which you won't disclose. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your question. It's a complex question. And we're also
complex, Chair, actually.
Just a second, I'll give you the opportunity. Just to say that, of course, actually, we have a new government now with some new ideas about how we move forward. And I think we have to also take that into account. In that might bring some changes. But Councillor Jarman, would you like to? Jordan.
Thank you, Chair.
You look very, very similar.
Yeah, so notwithstanding it's not that complicated. Firstly, the island plan, let's start with the government. So government say affordability is 80% of market rates, both rented and bought, purchased and sold. In the island plan, we had aspirations to go at 60%. we eventually came around 70% as an affordability. And that's where we are currently with that. We are talking to numbers of providers. You talk about council land. Well, we only have council land. We don't have private land. We only own council land. It's our land. Well, it's our land, Councillor Spink. We only discuss council land. We don't discuss what private developers build on private land.
Well, you do under
Well, we don't.
the affordable.
We're not entering into through the chair, please. Always through the chair.
Sorry, Chair. If I may, just as a clarification.
Would you like an answer, Councillor Spink, or would you like to ask more questions and make more
Just
comments?
as a clarification.
No, stop, please.
May I ask clarification?
Just a second. Let Councillor Jordan answer the question, then I will give you the opportunity. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. And we are currently in discussions with numbers of providers who are prepared to build on our council land with affordable homes. Affordable being in one case that one developer we're talking about, and it's not complicated, but there are different aspects to the way that they would deliver. They would deliver the affordability in terms of the spending power of the prospective tenants. So they would take their disposable income monthly and they would charge a percentage, 1/3, 30% of their disposable income as rent. Now, that's one developer. That there is also added to that an offer back of their land, glebe land owned by the church, for development by this council to provide affordable homes. And there's also a percentage of the homes that are delivered as affordable homes to be given to the council. Now, currently, as my understanding is, this council can own 200 homes. We're not a registered housing provider. So when we talk about, and you ask, why can't you build on council land? Well, we only build on council land. We don't build on private land. But we don't build because we're not a builder and we're not a housing provider. And the system has been in the past that's gone to housing associations. And they have developed the land and their own land and our land in providing either social homes. I wonder if you're getting confused with social and affordable. Social and affordable homes. The island plan also dictates it's around 35% of all developments over. I think it's 10. Again, there's some little tweaks to that, but around over 10 home developments, 1/3 have to be affordable. I think your question is about affordability and not about building homes. So what we're working on also is to try and regenerate the economy on the island so that people can afford affordable homes. I think you're asking in a gap here about homes that are described as affordable, but you are saying they're not affordable. So we have to make them affordable. Otherwise, we have to subsidise them from council money, or we don't build the homes because they have a cost to deliver. And you have to cover those costs. Now, if you are saying, if I were to pluck figures out there, £150,000 to build a 2-bed semi-detached home, but you could only sell it at 140,000, it wouldn't get built. Why would it build? Why would you build a home for 150,000 and sell it for 10,000 less? It's not going to happen. So I think your question's about affordability rather than building homes that are affordable. And I think you're also confusing affordable homes with social homes, which also this council doesn't provide in general terms.
So thank you very much for that. Just very briefly, because I don't want, there are other questions that I want to get to.
Yes.
But I said I would give you the right, and
Thank
you
you.
have the right. But I will cut you off in a second or two if you don't if you go on too long.
I'm not going to go on too long. I don't seek to address all of the points raised. I remain concerned that your article, your column didn't address the problem at all, and what you said to me doesn't. And your view that we only build homes on council-owned land is an utter nonsense. Most of the affordable housing is delivered in the affordable element of private land, private development.
Yes, yes.
So you really need, before you start telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about, you ought to try and understand the situation and do something about it rather than being flippant.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm going to call a halt to that. I hear two different conversations there about two slightly different things. One where you were talking about the ownership and us building on council land, and one which is about building on privately owned land. So there are two issues, and it's really from my perspective, it's really good to hear these passionate conversations about housing. We need to deliver housing moving forward, and I think that's the really important thing. So I will come to you, but I have got a question which I'm going to Councillor Mosdale because she's been waiting patiently, but I will come back to you, Councillor Adam.
I like that. I've been waiting patiently. No one looks at me and thinks I've been waiting patiently, but thank you for that, Chair. My question to the leader is, all councillors on this side of the chamber, you know, we constantly ask that we have assurance that if anybody does anything within our wards, that we are completely involved in everything that happens in the wards. And we do have assurance that if you are a ward councillor, every step of the way you will be involved in major issues. We have several things that happen, you know, that we're not involved in and we don't get invited to, or involved in the process, or things that are major issues within our ward. We recently had a situation that I'm trying to get the bottom of, so I won't disclose the details today. And I do have to say, Councillor Jordan and I actually get on really well, and we do message each other and say, can we sort this stuff out to go out before it comes into the council chamber, because it's not in the public interest. But involving councillors who are ward councillors is really, really important. So I want assurance, if there is a major issue in someone's ward, that all councillors are involved in those issues. We've had a situation where I have been told by people absolutely that something has been happening in area and they've been involved in it. They're either cabinet members or members of your group, the other side of the chamber, whereas our side, and including the councillors, haven't been involved, and actually have messages that say, no, we didn't involve that person at all. And I'm thinking, well, they're the ward councillors. Can I have assurance that anything that happens in a councillor's ward, that we do not have this situation, that they are not involved in senior officers' meetings, that they're not involved at director level, because they are the ward councillor, and you would not want that to happen. The councillors are the first point of call to their residents. They are the ones that get the flack. So we need to have insurance that it will not happen again, and the incident that has happened will be clearly looked into.
Thank you. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. I'm disappointed to hear that, actually. I'm interested in hearing your question, and I just turned away to clarify something, that the protocol from the officer side is that ward members are included where they're involved. That's the protocol. If something's gone wrong, whether it be cabinet members, me as a leader, or our staff, then we will put that right. Of course we must. I'm a ward member. We're all ward members. Of course, we need to be involved in issues in our ward. If it's gone wrong, Claire, let's have the details, and we not right now.
Chair, could I just add something to that? It's only brief. It's not just when it goes wrong, when it goes right as well, can you ensure that the ward member has been across the whole journey? Thank you. Not just when it goes wrong.
Of course, Claire.
That sounds a very reasonable request, and thank you for your question. We have one more question that I can see, two more questions. Councillor Adams, we are running towards time, but you have the right to ask your question.
Just like to say, getting back to Councillor Spink's remarks and Councillor Jordan's, I understand and I can see both sides of this argument, but I feel this whole issue around affordable housing, in particular to islanders, whether they're at 20% or 30%, I do not believe there's any affordable housing for islanders. I just don't. It's the market will dictate to that. Whatever way we look at it, the market dictates. People's buying these houses, the developers get round any of these little things, conditions we try to put in. I believe the developers find a way around this. And I think with Peter's regards, Councillor Spink's regards to council land, I would like to see some council land retained. And I know it's not government policy and council policy, but I would like to see this council try to implement a policy where we can retain some of this land. And the council needs to develop this land. And it's got to be a long-term project. We need to stop the right to buy, and we need to develop this land for islanders. If it's only for rent and not to purchase, we're at least providing something. And I believe we need to look at that option, because otherwise this cycle just continues and continues. And I believe the problem gets worse and worse. At some stage, we need to retain some of this land and develop it as a council, not with a partner, as a council. So once it's developed, the council gets the profit, retains the profit and retains control. I think that's important and it's something that needs to be looked at. I know it's not simple, but we need the discussion around it.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Adams, and very passionate. Would you like to respond?
Thank you, Dave. And we've spoken about this numbers of times, and I agree with your sentiments. And some of our approaches to do just that, actually, exactly that. We've identified numbers of council-owned sites, not the ones that we're retaining, but the ones that we identify, most of brownfield, and we're using some of the leverage of brownfield release fund, our land, as an offset to the cost of building on those, which we need to retain. Yeah, that's what we need to do. I absolutely agree with you, Dave.
Thank you. We just about have time, if you go really quickly to get a question and maybe a response, Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for Chris Potter. Chris, do you think it's acceptable that the leader of this council has called another councillor a liar in the press with absolutely no proof? And
Chair, I'm sorry. I don't actually think it's appropriate to ask questions of the officers. I'm so sorry. You need to address that to somebody else. That's not for, it's a council meeting.
I direct that question at the leader then. Does he think it's appropriate that he has called another councillor a liar today falsely in the press with absolute no basis, and in return has called another one of his councillors a liar in the same process? Has he spoken to the officers that he claims are never spoken to me? This picture doesn't, this meeting never happened, nothing at all. So so my simple question is, does the leader think his position in that chair is acceptable at the moment?
I've never used the word liar in the press.
No.
I've never used the word liar in the press. Let's be clear about what you're talking about. I'll deal with it.
Nice and calm, please.
Leeson Road was open this morning, ladies and gentlemen. Within 30 minutes, Councillor Blake announced in the press that he persuaded this council to open Leeson Road. He did not. Okay. And our officers have been working.
I'm going to stop this. I'm going to stop this. I realise that it's very passionate. We need to think about how we word our questions, please. When we're making, we should not be throwing accusations. We can ask questions in a better way, Councillor Blake. But my point is, we've now closed that question. I'm not going to take any more questions about that. We are right on. No, I'm sorry. We are closing. What's the point of order? Specific.
The specific point of order is that the question was not making an accusation. The leader made the accusation, and the question was asking him if it was appropriate.
Sorry,
Chairman said.
Sorry, this is finished. We are not getting into these kinds of conversations about officers in front of officers. These are questions that can be dealt with in a different place from here.
Point of order, then, please.
No, I'm sorry. No. I have sealed this one off. There are lots of people now starting to get excited about this and saying things which haven't been thought through. So that is that. I'm sorry, that is this. I'm sorry, Mr. Potter, I understand that you would like to respond, but I ask you to have that conversation with me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just simply to support you, Chairman, and indeed all councillors. As members will be aware, there is a time and place, there is a set procedure which is laid down by law. If there are questions about allegations about conduct, the Members' Code of Conduct, that must be complied with under the Localism Act. This is not the forum for such matters to be raised. Thank you, Chairman.
So thank you for that clarification. The buzzer has now gone. That means that our time is ended. I do thank you for your questions, but I do ask people to think carefully about those questions in the future. Let's be sensible and safe. Yeah. Thank you very much. The meeting is now ended.